ceasefire talks continue, although they have wrapped up in Doha, and it looks like it's going to continue next week in Egypt, in Cairo. Of course, Hamas is not present during these negotiations, but don't worry, their views are very well represented by the US and Egypt, so their opinions are there too. So we're gonna be talking about this, the continuation of these ceasefire talks. Just let me just do a quick rundown of what we know. So at first, there were some sort of fundamental differences in the negotiations in Doha. Basically saying that this is the final chance to reach the ceasefire. Hamas spokesperson said any agreement must include a complete withdrawal of IDF troops from the Gaza Strip and the return of the evacuated residents to the northern areas. So I've seen this information a lot. I'm not sure what exactly it means. Because I believe I don't know. We don't know much about the deal specifically. If it's still the Biden's deal, the original Biden's deal that did include the complete IDF withdrawal, but in the second or third stage. But in this one, it seems like they basically wanted basically the IDF withdrawal to be part of as like the starting point, pretty much. Which has been a red line for Israel. So that seems like a fundamental difference that cannot really be resolved, but we'll see what happens. And also, basically, a new proposal has been given to Hamas and Israel, which, considering the talks wrapped up in Doha and are going to continue in Cairo, seems to be that both sides kind of agree. So we'll have to hear more news about that. But we can talk a little bit about this. So James is joining me today, and also welcome to the Daily Objective. I'm not sure if I mentioned it. James, what do you think?
Well, the current round has wrapped up. They do, as you say, intend to resume the meetings next week on these negotiations. And listening to the United States State Department, listening to the President of the United States' National Security Advisor, Admiral Kirby, they're confident that they've got a framework that everyone's agreed to, and they're confident that they can work out some kind of negotiated settlement here, even though, as you point out, there appear to be insurmountable differences. Just in the last couple of days, rockets have been fired from Gaza. So this is an ongoing war here. Of course, recently, we're all holding our breath to see if and what Iran will do, because the leader of Hamas was killed in Iran. And so think of it. There you are, you're negotiating with, not directly with Hamas, mind you, they're through the surrogates. And as you point out, they've got plenty of surrogates who are advocating their side on this, with them not being present. But here you are allegedly negotiating a ceasefire deal with Hamas, and there you are trying to kill the guy, you're in fact killing the guy who's the head of the group you're negotiating with. Now that should tell you right there that there's a moral tension, a moral paradox here. Israel is negotiating with people they should not be negotiating with. They're negotiating with people that they're trying to kill actively right now. They're negotiating with people who are actively lobbing rockets at Israel just within the last couple of days. This is an ongoing war, and whatever the negotiations are, these are war negotiations. And therefore, things like any concession on the part of Israel, in fact, any consideration on the part of Israel to release Palestinian prisoners in exchange for innocent civilian hostages, is obscene. And even having that on the table is obscene. But as I say, there's a moral tension to negotiate with these thugs at all from the outset. They will not be negotiatable with until they stop firing rockets, until they surrender, until they release the hostages unilaterally. That should be the negotiating position of the West. Unilateral surrender is all that will do. Any negotiation, especially negotiation to release Palestinian militants, in exchange once more for what? Dead bodies in some cases? Is morally obscene, is morally obscene. I don't give these negotiations much chance of success because it seems to me that Israel will not accept what Hamas is demanding, um, all the things that Hamas is demanding. There are objectively, on the face of it, unreasonable. But that does not stop the United States State Department or the White House from thinking they have a workable framework which they think has great chances of succeeding, because that's the line we're given today, even though there do appear to be, um, what's the phrase, an unbridgeable gap between what Hamas is demanding and what Israel requires for its self-defense. To allow to allow free back and forth between Rafah and Israel, to allow Palestinians to move about now as if there wasn't an October 7th with total freedom, no, that would be totally to concede Israel's security position. These negotiations are corrupt. They shouldn't happen. Israel has nothing to gain for them. The things they're negotiating for are immoral, in my view, to negotiate for until Hamas is completely destroyed and until Iran is directly dealt with. None of these negotiations can result in anything that could be positive, in my view.
So I have to disagree with you there, James. There are no militants in Israeli prisons. There are terrorists in Israeli prisons that were caught either on October 7 or afterwards, which basically means these people have breached the border to basically just go in and kill as many Jewish civilians as they could lay their hands on.
I stand corrected. You're absolutely correct.
And so just to continue talking about this, yeah, I'm looking into my notes and it's kind of funny. I'm wondering what state of mind was I when I was making them, because my second point is this whole thing is a sham. Uh, and I'm now having trouble to remember what exactly I meant by this. Um, but yeah, these whole negotiations again, what the way it used to work in the past, and I might not mean specifically by, well, even Israel, when it was actually willing to defend itself, the only negotiation or the only act they would be okay with coming from the other side is the unconditional surrender. The unconditional part is the important one because you cannot have any conditions when it comes to these groups. Again, Hamas is a terrorist organization, is a designated terrorist organization by US specifically, and yeah, people seem to be refusing to acknowledge that fact. Again, any sort of negotiation that involves Hamas, that basically has Hamas there, can only be done, or the only way Hamas will be able to agree to that is if they can survive in some capacity afterwards. But even if there was, if Hamas basically would say, we will get out of Gaza, or basically if you let our people, and by that I mean Hamas leaders and Hamas officials, get out of Gaza, if you just do that, even that's going too far. You cannot accept that because we had a similar thing with the PLO. PLO wasn't established, was basically just jumping from an Arab country to an Arab country. It used to be in Jordan, and it used to be in Lebanon. It was fighting it was fighting Israel from whatever place they could be. So even if you got Hamas out of Gaza, that doesn't mean the end of Hamas. Hamas would still continue fighting. And if it would follow the history of PLO in any way, in 20 or so years, Hamas would probably be established in the Oslo Accords 2.0. Also, someone in the chat is asking what has happened to the Abraham Accords. When it comes to Trump, I think Abraham Accords were one of the weirdest deals ever. It like normalized relationships with Arab countries that have almost like no even problem with Israel at all. So I you can maybe mention what you mean about what happened with Abraham Accords. Basically, the goal was to normalize relations with certain Arab countries. that again had no actual problems with or basically there were no big deals with Israel. So in a sense they achieved whatever set out to do, but I don't see where else it was supposed to go. Uh, I don't know if James, you want to comment on the Abraham Accords.
Well, as you pointed out, the Abraham Accords, look, Israel should not be negotiating with countries. The precondition should be the acceptance of Israel, the renunciation of violence. They shouldn't be negotiating with dictatorships, theocracies, nor should the United States, frankly. And if you are going to negotiate, surely an acknowledgement of your right to exist has to be a precondition, not something negotiated for. So again, the moral premise of these negotiations is something I would question. On the other hand, as you point out, it was with the easier countries to achieve this mutual recognition and peace in the Abraham Accords, but there was a fear that it would go beyond. The fear, I think, Iran was behind this coordinated assault. Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, other Hezbollah affiliates attacking American interests, the Houthis shutting down international shipping in the Suez Canal and the Red Sea. That was a coordinated plan by Iran. And I think that Iran's major motivation was to prevent more Abraham Accord type deals. Their great fear is that Mecca and Jerusalem make peace. That is not on behalf, that would not be a positive thing for jihadists worldwide.
So
In their
just
perception.
to quickly jump in, I don't really see that because of how uncoordinated the attack actually was. It seemed like it was Hamas acting alone. To sort of defend your point, this was coming when there was a potential of normalizing relationships with Saudi Arabia, which would be, in a sense, Iran would perceive it as a threat. But I don't think we can make a case that this was sort of like acted by Iran. Again, I would expect much more coordination if it was actually. I mean, it was in a sense coordinated by Iran, by basically Iran supporting all these groups. But I don't think we have enough evidence to.
They had pumped in all kinds of military aid, equipment, training, etc. Moreover, I do not think that unless Iran's got your back, and there you're getting 95% of your support from Iran, you could actually do it without them giving an implicit wink. That is to say, if Hamas didn't have the green light from Iran, at least implicitly, why wouldn't they think that their aid would end if Iran really didn't want it? And when you see the Hezbollah and the Houthis joining in, it may not have been. I'm not saying that there was a Fu Manchu plot in Tehran to time all this exactly as it came down, because I think they were responding on the ground, and I think there were other motivations for Hamas to do it right at that moment. But I think it would be very naive for us to believe that all of these Iranian-backed affiliates are so aggressive against Israeli American interests in the wake of October 7th without thinking that Iran, of course, has given their sanctioning green light to it. What was the Hamas leader doing in Tehran when he was killed the other day? He was, of course, coordinating, as they do, with the Ayatollah.
Well, let's not bog down on this point too much because I don't think it's that fundamental. But I think the reason why kind of trying to fight the point is because I don't think they really do even have to rely on Iran too much. Hamas knows that the West will come for its rescue, the Western media and the Western allies will come to its rescue, will criticize Israel for actually defend itself, and will believe whatever Hamas says. If Hamas says that, I've seen the numbers now, apparently more than 40,000 people have died in the war. If Hamas just puts out these numbers, they can rely on the West to actually push against Israel. I mean, just the fact that these talks are happening, as I said at the start, Hamas doesn't even have to be present at these negotiations to basically their ideas to be represented.
I think politically you're correct. I think that they are, however, militarily supplied directly from Iran and are aware of that dependency. And that dependency does put Iran in a position where they can say, don't do it, or you can't expect as much aid or support. So when it comes to attack, the physical means by which Hamas attacks Israel, they are dependent on Iran. But when it comes to the politics and the negotiating, you're absolutely right. They're friends in the Western media, and they're friends in Western academia. And on the left, in the West, are exactly what they diplomatically rely on and for public relations rely on when it comes to Israel defending itself. But to pull off an October 7th, or to pull off the attacks that Hezbollah's doing from the north, or to pull off drone attacks from the Houthis quite a distance away, and still kill a man in Tel Aviv despite Israeli defenses, that suggests that various people who are supported and armed and trained by Iran were involved and came in with solidarity. That means, to my way of thinking, they got the green light from Tehran.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe to build more on that point, this so I'm trying to remember when has the assassination of Hania actually happened. I mean, at this point, it was weeks ago, and there's still
Yeah,
no. Yeah, I think I think it's about 2 weeks,
yeah, I
and
think so.
the fact that the Iranian, in a sense, response has not yet happened, yet it's still part of the discussion. Like, we have to do these negotiations because, because Iran has been attacked. I mean, when has that ever been accepted? Basically, that it's like they have a get out of jail free card. Someone was a terrorist was killed within their borders, and now they just have an infinite basically excuse. We get to attack Israel at some point, or we can use that card to get out of jail. It's insane. Like, this would never be accepted anywhere else. Whenever Israel does something, or whenever Israel gets attacked in any way, the sympathy of Western media they have is like, in a good case, it's about a week. Let's say with October 7, it took a little bit until Israel started to be criticized, although by many of people in the West, the time is much shorter. But but whenever Israel gets attacked, the window they get to basically, in a sense, sort of like have the sympathy to get away with attacks is really short. Yet Iran is allowed to basically, yeah, like if there was an attack now, if Iran decided to attack Israel now, like, how can you say, well, 2 weeks ago something has happened? I mean, that's insane. The amount of things Iran could get away with is insane. And this shows you how, yeah, basically, if you are a civilized country, if you are a good country, if you are a country that tries to play by the rules, either by the pretty arbitrary rules of the international courts or the international criminal courts, you will be punished for trying to abide by them. Israel is always being punished, whatever they try to do, and I don't think it's even good. But whenever they try to preserve the lives of Palestinians, it's never enough, and it will never be enough because Israel has already ceded the basically the moral sort of principles of the West, and by that I mean altruism. And altruism teaches you can never defend yourself in a war. There's no appropriate action you could take. And just try to talk to some people. Now it's apparently 40,000 people who have died. Try to ask them, well, what's the good number? Is 20,000 okay? It's 5,000 okay? It's 10,000 okay? No, it's never. The only acceptable number is zero because they don't believe Israel can defend itself. But when it comes to Iran, that doesn't play by the rules, they can just do whatever they want. I mean, it's the way, for example, the way international courts work is you have to submit yourself to it. You have to, in a sense, hold yourself at the mercy of these international courts, and that's the only way they can work. That's why they try to take a country like China to the international courts for their oppression of Uyghurs, and China just said no. And yeah, you cannot do anything about them afterwards. Yet Israel still allows itself to basically throw itself around for the other people to say whatever they want about them. And Israel is not offering any response. I mean, the whole fact that they are even negotiating with Hamas about this is terrible.
Crazy, crazy. The people that perpetrate October 7th, and they're negotiating peace with them. No, the utter destruction of Hamas is what is called for. Their complete defeat. Their complete defeat. They're psychologically being crushed. Their incapacitation from being able to do any such thing in the future, and if necessary, the occupation of the lands from which they did it. But you're absolutely right. Iran will get all kinds of moral credit for not attacking Israel again. Months from now, they'll still be getting this kind of moral credit in the world. Yeah, and you're absolutely right as well about these international organizations. Israel and the United States should denounce these international tribunals, should get out of the United Nations, which, as we've been covering very well in recent days, is simply an organization that coddles, protects, and preserves, morally sanctions, and gives voice to dictatorships and terrorist supporting nations. The civilized nations of the world have to realize when they see something like UNRWA, when they see what the International Court of Justice is doing, we have to take a moral stand and say, no, this is immoral. This is nothing we want to participate in, even as a matter of moral sanction. And Israel gives up the entire game when it even offers a defense in those tribunals, gives up the moral sanction game when they even offer a defense of those tribunals, in my view. So you're absolutely right. It is a one-sided thing. Israel cannot defend itself ever. Iran will be given moral credit for not aggressively attacking again Israel because one guy, the leader of Hamas, the group that perpetrated October 7th, was killed. And they'll get all kinds of moral credit for not attacking Israel again for doing that. It's a morally perverse and upside down world that we live in. Absolutely correct. The atrocities of October 7th will never get their moral understanding and justification. And all this just war theory is what's behind it in the West, and it's rooted in Christianity. It's rooted in turn the other cheek, submit to the evildoer, love your enemy, all those other horrific things that Jesus says in the New Testament, which are horrific, which tell you just to lay down and take it. And you can't turn the other cheek. What does that mean? You can't block the punch. You can't run away even. You much less fight back if you think you can fight back. No. You've got to say, okay, hit me here on the other side of the face. When that's your morality, when the morality of Christian altruism is determining your rules of just war, you've got to minimize civilian casualties. You've got to try everything short of. No, you don't. When someone aggressively attacks you, there's only one rational response: to attack back and incapacitate and psychologically cow the person who attacked you so that it does not happen and cannot happen again. Yes, Christianity, Kant, all of this altruism crap that is behind just war theory incapacitates civilized nations in the face of barbaric nations, which have to morally sanction them. Because, of course, we're saturated with the notion of cultural and moral relativism. So who are we to judge Iran, even if they brutally suppress free speech, the rights of women, execute gays? No matter what the brutal regime in Iran does, we've got to, well, they're just a fact of nature that we have to accept. We just have to come to terms with a nation that evil, that medieval in its barbarity. No, it's a morally perverse international system we have. There's no question about it.
Yeah, and then again, you have to realize Hamas is a designated terrorist organization. I know that it is by United States. I'm not sure about the European Union. It might be that just the Al-Qassam brigades, the military wing of Hamas, is a designated terrorist organization. But let's look at it just from the point of the US. So Iran, by allowing a leader of a terrorist organization to stay in their country, that's a breaking of international law. You cannot harbor a terrorist. That's the same thing that Lebanon has been doing. That's the same thing that Turkey has been doing. Yet, again, no one attacks them. It's just accepted. People,
Norway says it'll arrest Netanyahu if Netanyahu comes to Norway on some warrant that an international court would issue. When it comes to harboring the leader of the organization that pulled off October 7th, Iran doesn't get into any trouble. Turkey doesn't get into any trouble. Doha, Qatar. Why aren't the leaders of Qatar on the hook for allowing these terrorist monsters safe shelter at Michelin rated hotel 5-star hotels in their country? It's obscene.
Yeah, and again, when I point out things like that, people like to call out, it's the hypocrisy coming out of the Western things. But I don't think so. Or rather, I don't like to focus on that specific aspect. But yeah, it's completely crazy, and Israel has to realize that. Yeah, it just cannot rely on its allies to basically stand behind them. Israel needs to do everything alone. The way it has for basically it has to return to the 20th century. And that's the unfortunate fact. It has to fight it in the way it fought its independence war. It has to fight it the way it's been fighting the Six-Day War, which means alone, because that's what Israel is. Israel is alone in the world. Whenever is America or other countries do offer some support, it's great to see, but we know this cannot be relied upon. So, and Israel has to realize it, and it has to realize that if it wants to survive into the future, if it wants to still exist, if it wants to be the one free nation, and also by just being there, probably inspire the people in the region to rise up, such as in Iran, and to push for more freedom in the region, it has to realize that it's alone and it has to act in that way.
Yes.
And stop negotiations. That would be a good start.
What the hell are they doing negotiating with Hamas, even indirectly? That is itself a moral sanction that gives away so much, nearly the whole game right there. Just negotiating with them is utterly and absolutely perverse. You're absolutely right. And they have to realize, Israel has to realize they're totally on their own. Kamala Harris is, all about now, even stronger than Biden had ever been, about ceasefire, 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 no matter what. Civilian casualties in Gaza, she's taken up that cause. And when you've got Anthony Blinken and Admiral Kirby in America saying we have a framework for negotiating peace with Hamas, Israel has to realize, one, that they are going to aggressively push. Israel has to realize they're on their own, as you say. They have to act independently, and they have to stop morally sanctioning their enemies. As you say, negotiating with Hamas in itself is a concession, is the moral concession that makes all these other evil compromises possible. But will I be surprised if at the end of the day there's some deal cut where Palestinian terrorists are released from prison in exchange for dead bodies, and Hamas is allowed to live to pull off another October 7th? Yeah, something like that might actually happen. And that is my greatest fear. This isn't going to solve anything.
And with that, let me thank the super chatters. Thank you, Bonnie, and thank you, Bulmus. Bulmus says, "You and the United Narcissist." Thank you for both of your super chats. Thank you for everyone watching. This was as with many of the recent shows, it was a little bit of a letdown episode. But on the reality show, we're gonna be talking about settler violence. Okay, unfortunately, I'm not gonna make it much brighter. But we have the reality show coming up where we'll be talking about yesterday's attack by settlers on a small Palestinian town in the West Bank. So we're talking about that and talking about the settlers and the settlers, as well as the Israeli government and the Palestinian Authority government on the reality show in just a bit. So thank you, James, for joining me today. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and bye-bye.
Be safe.